So the Hyuga just released, and I thought about doing a first impressions on this ship, and then I played some games in it, and I feel like I can just give you guys a full review on it, because this ship is the Japanese Florida, pretty much to a T. This ship hits really hard when things are broadside, and doesn't do a lot of damage when things are angled. But when people give broadside, wow. You're a Fuso with better accuracy, 1.8 Sigma, and that really shows in a lot of these salvos. You also get a reload booster, and the reload booster is not like a especially long-lasting one. Essentially what it does is gives you one extra salvo really quickly. So you shoot, and then you pop your reload booster, and the reload booster is active for 15 seconds, and that's enough to get your reload cut in half for one salvo. And I think that's cool. A lot of the other reload boosters are 30-second reload boosters where you get two salvos. You shoot, then you get to pop your reload booster, then you get a salvo, then you keep your reload booster going, and then you get another salvo. So instead of that, this is half the time, but as a consequence of that, or a bonus of that, it comes up really quickly. Strasbourg reload is somewhere in the 3-minute range, I believe. Actually, no, I think it's 4 minutes? Something like that. Strasbourg reload booster, another tier 7 battleship, is insanely long on the cooldown. There you can see how devastating that is. Just slapped that Mogami, and the Kansas only had to get an overpen to kill him. That said, it is tier 7. And sometimes at tier 7, there's ships with no citadels, and then you're sad. But this reload booster is really, really, really cool. I like it a lot, and it's way more useful than the Strasbourg one. It feels like you can pop it when you need it, and it's only there for when you need it. Generally, you only get one extra salvo, in my mind, when you pop your reload booster. By the time you get to your third salvo on a normal reload booster, the guy's probably angled already. But this brings me to the biggest problem with the Hyuga. It's Matchmaker. I think you all knew where this was going. It faces tier 9 all the time. And it's not very fun playing a Fuso against a Yamato. Or, well, yes, it's a Hyuga, and yes, it's a Musashi. But essentially, it's Fuso versus Yamato, just like that clip on Euro's channel all those years ago. And it is painful being the Fuso, let me tell you, okay? Your shells don't do much damage. You're forced to shoot you're forced to shoot HE if he angles. And if you're like me in this game, you get incredibly unlucky with your fire chance, and you just get no fires. And you're just kind of left feeling a little sad. But that's what this ship has to do. Just like the Florida, anytime you're against tier 9s, even some tier 8 battleships, you do have to load the HE. You got to be willing to load the HE. At least with this ship, you have the reload booster for when you do light a fire and then they damage control that fire. You can get a reload booster off and not instantly relight them, but you can try and instantly relight them. The armor on this ship is quite a bit better than Florida's, in my mind. Talking about differences with that ship. You get more of this lower tier casemate style armor where you do have the ability to bounce even Musashi shells if he hits you kind of midship. Of course, the bow and the stern are only 26 millimeters of armor, so that's not amazing. And of course, if you show too much broadside, even a little bit, you're going to get crushed. So, that sure was a lucky salvo by the Musashi, but it happens. And it's not just Musashi that can do that to you. Anything with 406s can do that to you as well. So beware of something like a North Carolina, or even at your own tier, something like a Nelson. Hurts a lot. So, it's a rough ship to play these days. I'm going to be honest. Playing it these days, tier 7 battleship premium, 40 US dollars, I believe. I think it was 50 Canadian dollars. This ship is not one that I would recommend you play. Because of games like this. And this is the full match I'm going to show you. This is a perfect example of a tier 7 premium battleship. You spawn on a flank, your team leaves you and goes to the middle, so you're slow and you're left to kind of run away with whatever health and ability you do have. And you basically do nothing for most of the battle. And that's why I've got this sped up on 2 times. It's really a lot of patience is required to play this ship in tier 9 games. You overextend a little bit, you die. You don't have the health, you don't have the armor to play like a tier 9 battleship would in tier 9 Matchmaker. It's just not good enough. Something I also want to note, as you're watching here, just look at the shell flight times here. This is a 12-second shot at 18 kilometers, and I didn't even lead that enough. It is the same shell characteristics and drag as Fuso, but you got to remember you're at higher tier now, and ships are a lot faster at tier 7, and especially tier 9. Ships are much faster. So leading these shells at longer ranges actually caught me off guard. It made me initially think they had done something to the shell drag, when in actuality they hadn't with the ship. It's not that it's bad, it's just you have to lead a lot, and shooting at tier 9 ships at long range is not what you want to be doing in this ship. So my advice to playing it is to be using islands to push up with and get into closer brawling-ish ranges with it, where you don't have to worry as much about the shell drag, that kind of thing, and play with your team as much as possible. That's why I'm almost running, not quite full speed right now. I'm trying to dodge shells somewhat unsuccessfully here, and trying to get back with my teammates. I don't want to be the one that, well, 2 tier 9 and a tier 8 battleship are shooting at. That's a great way to die very, very, very quickly. This is a great ship. I don't want you to get that wrong. This is a really, really, really good ship. The accuracy alone makes it an amazing ship, even against tier 9s. When they show broadside, they're going to take some pain. It's just that playing a ship with this level of armor, the shell drag, into tier 9 all the time, it's what it feels like sometimes. It's not all the time, but it's definitely more often than not you're playing against tier 9s. It's not a ship that I would recommend you get for, let's say, a credit earner or a captain trainer, that kind of thing, for your Japanese battleships. I really can't recommend it for those reasons, because you're looking to play this ship a lot and have consistently good games when you're looking to get a captain trainer or a credit earner. And playing this ship mostly against tier 9s more often than not is not going to really result in a lot of consistency. Yes, you'll get more experience for shooting at higher tier ships, but the consistency of the ship just won't be there, because you're going to get games like this, where you spend 9 minutes doing nothing but getting 22,000 damage, right? I sped this up, but this was 9 minutes of me essentially doing nothing in a battle. And I'm pretty good at this game, right? So the consistency of the Matchmaker and the consistency of the ship just isn't there in those matches. If you face tier 7, wow, you're having a blast. If they ever fix tier 7 Matchmaker, I think Hyuga and Florida are going to be easily the best battleships at that tier. Pretty easily. Sinop, close, but Sinop suffers at range and accuracy, right? And it still doesn't have good enough armor to just bounce everything, right? So I really do believe that the accuracy on this ship and the Florida, by extension, allow it to be one of the best tier 7 battleships against its tier. But the weak hull, poor shell arcs for the tier, right? Since we're getting higher tiers, obviously it is the same as Fuso. Make it a difficult ship to play against these higher tiers. But it's good. It is a good ship, but that is why I won't recommend you guys buy this if you're looking for that consistent kind of one premium to get. I do really like it, but I also don't think you should get it if you already have Florida. If you got yourself the Florida, there's not much new here. This is a Florida with worse AA, better armor in some aspects with a reload booster, and I would say slightly worse dispersion than Florida. It's not quite as consistent as Florida, but you can certainly hit a lot of shells when you need to. Also, this ship doesn't get quite as much range as Florida. Florida, of course, can mount the range mod in slot 3 because it's an American battleship. as well as take a spotter plane. So you're lacking AA on the Hyuga, you're lacking range on the Hyuga compared to something like a Florida, but you're getting something like a reload booster and this casemate style of armor, which can help a little bit against HE spam and potentially helping you bounce some higher tier battleship shells off your broadside. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but these ships play very similarly. They can't tank for very long. They're not designed to be this all-out pushing ship. They're designed to be on a flank. They're designed to catch broadsides and punish people with their accurate salvos. And you can see that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get on people's sides and deal damage that way, right? Like my Iowa is in the middle. People are unfortunately angling to me instead of him, but hey, at least somebody's getting a broadside and they're actually giving broadside to an Iowa. So he's likely dealing more damage than I would be dealing anyway. So briefly, I want to say that if you're looking to farm damage, this is actually a very good ship to use. As many of you know, the reload booster ships at higher tier are often the best ships for farming damage in. And that's because of how powerful, I would say overpowered, but we can certainly all agree on how powerful fire damage is. And reload boosters allow for a lot of consistency when it comes to getting those fires and maintaining fires on a lot of ships. You look at ships like Kleber, you look at ships like Bourgogne, Jean Bart, Henry, right? French ships, fair enough, but the reload booster ships, they do incredibly well farming HE damage. So something like a Hyuga would do better against these higher tier opponents than something like a Florida. I haven't really been playing much Florida recently, mainly because of the tier 9 matchmaker and having to be forced to use the HE on the Florida. That is an advantage that the Hyuga gets, is it has decent HE. You can see in this video, I've had salvos upwards of 10,000 damage and a fire here and there. The fire chance, of course, isn't anything special, right? It's in the 25% range, so it's like heavy cruiser fire chance. But you do get a reload booster, so for a short time, you actually do have heavy cruiser reload. So keep that in mind as far as a tier 7 ship is concerned. It's not bad as a fire starter. I just don't like playing HE spammers, right? I'm looking for those AP salvos. I'm looking to chunk people. I'm looking to take full advantage of that. But as for farming damage, you can definitely do it. And in this ship, I've had some very, very good games. I think I am averaging somewhere in that 100,000 damage mark with a tier 7 battleship, which is really, really, really good in my mind. And the odd game that I have gotten so far with the tier 7 as top tier, you know, playing against tier 6s and the few tier 5s here and there, it's a lot of fun playing this ship. It is a ton of fun. The problem is 3/4 of the time, or maybe a little less, maybe 2/3 of the time, you're playing tier 9. And it's difficult. So that's my caution. That's my recommendation. Feel free to buy this ship if you know you're okay playing against these higher tier ships that are just going to deal lots of damage to you. It is a very, very strong ship in itself as far as comparing it against tier 7 battleships. I just don't play tier 7 much anymore because of tier 9 matchmaker. And I feel like a lot of you are probably in that same boat where your Scharnhorst is sitting in its port, not really doing much but collecting dust these days because you can't push, you can't brawl with that ship anymore. And a lot of your tier 7 cruisers, well, you may as well play a tier 8 or tier 9 cruiser where you get more armor, you get more heal, you get more range, that kind of thing. If you're playing against those ships the majority of the time anyway. That's why I caution getting a ship like this, getting a tier 7 premium. You're much better off getting a tier 8 premium. You're going to get more credits, more Captain XP, that kind of thing. Yes, the ship costs a little bit more up front, but I think you're going to have consistently better games than a tier 8. A tier 8 does better, tier 8 battleship does better against tier 10s than a tier 7 battleship does against tier 9s. And that just has to do with the armor layout. Tier 8 finally gets the 32mm armor plating on the bow and stern, which means the majority of the battleships you're facing at those higher tiers can't just overmatch you straight through the nose. They actually have to kind of respect your angling and that kind of thing. Whereas these tier 7 battleships, they're right on that edge where they still have the overmatchable noses, where everything at the tier, it feels like, overmatches everyone. And it's a weird tier to play battleships in. So if you're someone who's looking for that, and you're okay with the way tier 7 battleships are, I think this is an easy pickup, especially if you don't have a Florida and you're looking for that accurate battleship, but Florida wasn't quite what you were looking for, or you just happened to not get it or not want to get that one. This is a very good ship. It's a very good battleship. The dispersion is very consistent for a 12-gun battleship, and the reload booster is way better than Strasbourg. Like, not even close. Strasbourg is not in the same conversation at all of this ship. So, you can see in this game even though we had around 9 minutes at the start of dealing almost no damage, we got up to 120,000 damage in this one. And this is a tier 9 game. Nearly worst case scenario. There's this tier 8 CV, there's a lot of destroyers, a lot of battleships at higher tiers, that kind of thing. Not a lot of cruisers for us to really use our reload booster and get those amazing broadsides on, and we still did pretty well. So it does show that there's a lot of power in this ship. But for me personally, for my money, I personally wouldn't buy this ship if I was trying to keep a tight budget, that kind of thing. And I would go with a tier 8 premium battleship over top of a tier 7 premium battleship. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Hyuga, and I like it. It's a great ship. It's a great, great, great fun ship to play if you're willing to accept those caveats. To end this game off, I get greedy trying to get my 4th kill and a little bit of extra damage here. And of course, what do we know happens when you're coming around a corner that a DD knows you're there? Torpedoes! But that's okay. Let me quickly go over the build that I'm recommending for this one. It's pretty much the same for every battleship these days. Especially after Deadeye's gone, it's going to be identical for every ship. So I'm running my Yamato Captain on this ship, and it seemed to work quite well. You're not looking for secondaries, you're not looking for AA on this thing. You're just going for tankiness as well as Deadeye. Deadeye can work on this ship. I didn't have it active very often because of the bad concealment, with 14 kilometers. Which I guess I forgot to mention. The Florida has much better concealment. That's a massive advantage Florida gets as well. But this is the build, I think, for a lot of ships. If you're getting a specific for Hyuga build, it's gun feeder instead of preventative maintenance because you are switching to HE a lot of the time. I just wanted to bring my Yamato Captain over, and of course I'm not running HE out of a Yamato since we overmatch basically everything. And yeah, basic survivability, adrenaline rush, fire prevention, concealment, Deadeye, very standard. And if you're curious, once Deadeye is removed, I am just going to switch over to Emergency Repair Expert on basically every battleship. It'll be these 3 you see on every battleship from me, and then basic survivability and adrenaline rush on every battleship. And then it'll either be Grease the Gears, Vigilance, or I think maybe on Vermont I'd run AA Gunner because bump your AA like crazy. And either Preventative Maintenance or Gun Feeder. A very cookie cutter standard build coming up, especially once Deadeye is gone. And then for the equipment, again, very standard. Damage con, aiming, damage con, keep your guns alive. Very standard, very basic. You notice you don't get a spotter plane, so you are just stuck with that base 20 kilometer range. So, not bad. Yeah, that's my review. It's a great ship, as long as you're okay with the Matchmaker state of a tier 7 battleship. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.